Jumping right into the action here as we start off on Junkertown. Payload already getting pushed. Decod on the point alongside Fried Wiener, and I never thought I'd have to say that name again on a stream, but here I am doing it one more time.
It's a peculiar one. I didn't even get to see him in the past. I don't know how familiar you are with this particular player, but it seems like it's a triple tank composition actually on the defensive side. No Widowmaker to really contest on Fractal Esports.
Yeah, they're definitely, with that Diva pick, they're looking to try to kind of shut down the push that the attacking team is going to be displaying, obviously. And already out of the gates, I'm kind of looking at Meek to try to put some pressure out on this Zenyatta pick. They put Dino out, and that's something that's interesting because, as you guys mentioned, you know, Dino's a very solid player. He was one of the better players, I would say, from Fractal Esports so far.
And so far, as it will be overall, this side of last night's leftovers having control over the payload and potentially getting it to that first point. But we'll see Kalush contest for now. Look to open up things for his team, but the infrared side now coming in. We'll spot out the opposition. The Dragon Strike is just gonna take down NK. And with that particular kill, it should be last night's leftovers with an easy time towards this first checkpoint.
Utilizing the Junkrat, utilizing that 3 tank, they just wanted to try to get aggressive, get on the payload, and try to, you know, slow down the payload with everything that they could, but it just didn't work out. I mean, the 2 sniper strat that they pulled out, in lair, reach, of course, both going with Hanzo and Widowmaker. They were able to get those angles and find those shots, get those kills, so that really there was almost no real fight to contest from the side of Fractal Esports.
And we will see now Fractal Esports on the dive if they can have a little bit more success, considering the fact that Dummy was forced to use that Transcendence. Maybe it's going to be enough for them to find an opening here, potentially get one team fight win to start things off in the second phase, as Frill is going to be able to get 1 kill onto the Hanzo, but Fried Wiener, as well as Reach, even getting a kill onto NK with the mine. It's going to make things better and better here for last night's leftovers, as it will just have Tensa left on the point, finally going down with the likes of Kalush. And with 4 minutes and 10 seconds left, his ultimates will look to stall things at the very least right before that second checkpoint, but things looking really good right now for last night's leftovers.
They should have a good fight here. They still do have the Genji and the Tracer that can put pressure on the snipers. They have the Transcendence to back it up. Tensa's very close to having his ultimate. He's going to get the res on NK just to make sure that they can continue this push right now, because they have to get active right now. And they're trying to throw the Dragon Strike in. Won't find anything initially. The Transcendence will also keep them alive for now, but first pick already going over to last night's leftovers does not bode well once again for Fractal Esports.
And we'll see the self-destruct used by Kalush, just pushing them away, getting a resuit at that as well. And as a result, even Tensa popping that Valkyrie is going to look to keep him in that mech. Is not going to happen. And the layer actually getting the scatter kill onto Meek. And in the meantime, NK popping that blade will find 1 kill, make that a second. But overall, Reach still getting the best of him, makes things difficult potentially here for this side of Fractal Esports to still hold down strong. Ajax actually managing to go in, get the rest on top of that. Will help Decod get back in, but the question is for how long, as we will see Kalush take him down once again. And Fractal Esports fighting back will potentially manage to hold right before that second point.
They also made that fight last quite a long time, so extra time taken off because of that. And I imagine we're going to be seeing some swaps here from last night's leftovers, unless they feel incredibly comfortable about the ultimates they're bringing into this next fight. Reach is now swapping over to the Genji. I imagine Inlair was going to want to swap as well, but he's close to a Dragon Strike himself, so I suppose they're going to try to go for the pick and then perhaps use that ultimate just to kind of push that momentum forward if they can, because he has been pretty efficient about getting the first pick, you know, time and time again.
And we'll see the Supercharger be plopped down. The Decod looking to dish a lot of damage to the rest of his team. Pulse Bomb actually sticking to the Roadhog, but Transcendence will be used in the meantime. Frill will manage to find said Supercharger. NK getting Reach as well. Will make it a 6v5, and things looking once again really good for this side of Fractal Esports, as NK will eventually go down, but with the kill still favoring this side of Fractal Esports, it's going to be Decod and Elenair running back towards spawn. And you would imagine you wouldn't want that Hanzo just, even with the Dragon Strike, just make sure you swap as soon as possible and get this started.
Well, he's going to go ahead and throw it out, see if they can just catch them and push them off of that aggressive position that they were holding up top with the high ground. Then he's going to make the swap. as he expends his ultimate. It's going to be over to a Tracer. We've seen this look from them before, and now going full dive, they have a much better shot.
Oh, but both support ultimates used and not too big avail, as 2 kills are still going to go in favor of Last Night's Leftovers. The Resurrect will come through. The Blade was popped, but no kills now. We'll find one in the end onto Reach, but overall, still not quite what you want if you're Fractal Esports. And if this team of Last Night's Leftovers can recover, recoup, reset, and come back in, they could potentially get the second point, as we'll see the Mercy go down. But Frill answering with 1 kill of his own onto Decod will still find kills with the rest of his team, as NK's got a Swift Strike right back in. Frill gets another, and with these staggered kills, all of a sudden, Fractal Esports still looking really good.
They've just been so consistent, and speaking of consistency, Brunch, you know, throughout that first point, we saw excellent stuff from Reach and Lair, but ever since then, it's been lacking the same consistency since they've gone over to the full dive. Admittedly, yes, they've only had 1 push, and we did see a lot committed to that last fight, and they will have more available now, as well as, you know, their DPS ultimate. So this is really the best opportunity for them to jump in, put some damage onto the supports. They already found both kills with the Blade. Reach firing it off.
And while he will go down in the end, it should still be this lineup of Last Night's Leftovers getting this payload on the point. But Frill still answering with a kill off the pulse bomb is going to make things a little bit more difficult. But considering the fact that the respawns are not going to come in time, we'll still see Last Night's Leftovers get second checkpoint. But with 1 minute and 26 seconds left, and the Lair also going down, it's going to be all too difficult to get things rolling, because on the other side, Transcendence is at the ready, as well as the Blade for NK.
They're really going to have to get a really tide-turning push where they can just carry momentum through if they want to be able to finish the map at this rate. And given the fact that we see Meek and NK with Blade and Transcendence to boot, they already got first blood. It's going to be very difficult to have that happen here.
And the Blade will be used, 60 seconds left. However, he will go down. No success off of it. All of a sudden, things will start looking better for the attacking side, considering the fact they also have Soundbear at the ready to potentially stall things, and Transcendence will be the answer from the defensive side here of Fractal Esports. But overall, no kills on either side. The respawn should be good enough for NK to be back into the fight. And the self-destruct now being popped, potentially getting a resuit. In the meantime, Reach finally does manage to get a kill onto Meek, and with Decod getting the second support, they will cover a little bit of extra distance, but it's not going to be over just yet. The other side still has quite a lot of time left, and Dummy will eventually go down, as Gator did catch him off, but the payload, nobody on it. Meets that it's going to just sit there for a sec. Now, finally, Decod and even Fred Wiener will be back on it, but is it a little too late? As in the meantime, Gator coming back in does get found, but Meek answering with 1 kill of his own. Self-destruct will be popped on the defensive side by Kalush. Doesn't get any targets, but the Blade is going to come out of reach. However, he gets taken down. Meek with the answer.
He was so quick about retaliating there. Now we're going to be seeing NK's Blade as he goes forward. Discord is going to be on the Winston, as they're just going to be cutting them to pieces. Meek looks like he's under fire, but they will find the kill onto Lair. The Tracer falls, and so does Last Night's Leftovers' chances of finding that third objective point. That was the fight, though, that they were looking for on the attacking side. Last Night's Leftovers were looking for a fight where they could pull a lot of ultimates out, not have to use a lot themselves. They disengaged from NK's initial Blade. They made sure it didn't have as much value. They came back in. They had, you know, Dummy ready to go with the Transcendence. Yes, he died off, but they got the early kill on the Winston, as we saw Gator go down quite early, but they just weren't able to pull that fight out. They didn't have Dummy there in time. They didn't have all their, you know, positioning sorted beforehand. And when we saw the Blade come through from Reach, it just wasn't, you know, the best Blade that we've seen from him. And Meek was insane about his reaction time to just turn, get the headshot, and then kick him down into the dirt as well. A big play from Meek to shut that push down, because if that Blade had killed off Meek and he wouldn't have been able to find that kill, I think that would have looked a lot different. They had a lot of momentum at that point on Last Night's Leftovers. They might have been able to, I mean, they certainly would have pushed it farther, but they might have been able to get the third one off of that. But in the end, big play from Meek, who just came in for Dino at this stage of the tournament.
And we were questioning why Dino got replaced, or rather at the very least substituted for this map, considering the fact that he has had a lot of success on the likes of Sombra, even on other flex supports. But Meek, definitely big time plays coming out of him. This time around on the Zenyatta will be impressive so far, but he has to keep it up, because on the other side, Reach will once again, and even on defense, go for the Widowmaker and Ajax on that Ana. This is something we've seen out of last night's leftovers time and time again, be it on Dummy or Ajax. A lot more on Ajax just because Dummy has been the Zenyatta player for this team overall. But it's an interesting one considering the fact that the tanks are lined up here for the attacking side. At the very least 3 of them for now.
Oh, they're holding forward a little bit. Not going to find anything initially, and Enke always going to get eliminated quickly. The headshot, it wasn't fully charged from Reach, but still allowed them to find the kill early. Almost got Tensa there as well. And already last night's leftovers looking very solid to start things off, keeping Fried Wiener alive as well.
It's not over just yet, considering the fact that Frill will manage to find the hook and Resurrect cannot come through on the other side. Even Meek getting Reach in that engage, and with the sniping Zenyatta in the fray, it will make things more easy here for Fractal Esports to potentially get the first point as well. The defensive side should have enough time, however, to regroup and contest the payload one more time at the very least. But considering the fact that Decod's gonna actually get taken down, I'm not even sure if they're gonna go for it.
They can't. I mean, the thing about Hanzo in this particular situation is that if they try to come through any of those chokes, they're just going to get scattered and they're going to get murdered as they come through. And it's so hard to engage like that because if they come through and they go past their shield, they'll just get hooked there as well. And that's exactly what we saw them do. Frill was just so quick about hooking Decod away from the rest of his team. They got the pick quickly, and then there was just no hope for them to recontest with.
And now we'll have quite a bit of ultimates building up on the offensive side here for Fractal Esports, whereas on defense, now Reach will make the swap eventually to the Genji. We'll, however, see Dummy potentially have his Transcendence soon enough. And I'm curious to see that Riptire, if it can find those early targets, because Meek might have just popped that Transcendence as an answer just to make sure he stays alive. As so far, it's still rolling, still hunting for this target. It's gonna find one in the end, and pretty big one at that. But the Dragon Strike is gonna come out, split the opposition. So far, NK still getting one in the end onto Decod Gator, being brought back up with the Resurrect, and Fried Wiener does get Frill with the help of the Bionade.
Oh, we see the self-destruct coming out as well. Not going to find anything there, and you have to wonder who they want to prop up with this nano boost. They need to win this fight, ideally, but they're not going to get it, it seems like, and it's just clean up for Enke. This is the Hanzo play that we've been looking for, you know, this entire time on Junkertown, where we've seen a couple of people put it up. We've seen some picks happen, but Enke, this is probably the first time we've seen so far in this tournament where it's just been such an impressive performance by a Hanzo, but more importantly, a Hanzo alone, because he's the solo DPS right now in this composition. If you're not obviously counting Zenyatta or even D.Va or even Roadhog, who admittedly have a lot of damage output themselves.
And now the big problem for last night's leftovers is the fact that they have so much time here. They need to hold onto this payload for 5 minutes, 10 seconds. Reach, it was gonna pop the blade, finally gets one, gets a second. However, will be taken down in the end with the help of a hook coming out of Frill, but that was more than enough to stop Fractal Esports, at the very least for now. But it is gonna take a lot more out of them to keep this one in their favor.
They've just played so much better with momentum. They've been able to push fights that really seemed very difficult for them to win. And now we're starting to see a different look from last night's leftovers, as they're going to be a lot more aggressive here because they have to be. They're forced to try to play on the payload so that they can just make sure that it doesn't push too much further here, or they will lose the map.
And Transcendence is actually going to be used by Meek just to keep the rest of his teammates safe, and especially with Decod being the first one to go down, it's going to make things that much more difficult for the opposition to contest on display. Nobody inside Dummy is going to finally manage to get back in with the help of the Transcendence. But again, this is going to be enough, as he's going to be the only member alongside Ajax on said payload. Not going to be the case, and Fractal Esports take a pretty convincing first win.
Enke has had a very solid performance. I mean, you know, we talked about it before with Fractal Esports. A lot of times their players just have standout performances on these individual maps that make it so that they're able to take these kinds of games. Before it was Peter on King's Row. Now I have to say, between Enke and Meek, it's hard to call, but between the two, they were outstanding for Fractal.
And coming up next, it will be Hanamura. Don't go anywhere.
And we are back at the analysis desk once again. Fractal Esports, they had a great showing in the first map. They bought enough time in the second point defense, and last night's leftovers were basically just unable to finish the map. It's good to see Enler play instead of Kevster, as I said before. I don't think he looked bad at all playing on Hansa.
Well,
However, NK was way better.
yeah, and that's the big thing, right? It wasn't only NK, though. I really like what we've seen so far out of Meek. His Zenyatta play has been definitely a menacing, or just force to reckon with on the battlefield, if you will. Just taking those kills, making sure he shuts down the opposition, especially when it comes to those flankers. That's one of the big things when you have to consider with the Zenyatas of the likes. But overall, really well played by Fractal Esports. Last night's leftovers, though, they really need to step it up, because if they lose this one, they're out.
Now, the next map is going to be Hanamura. In your opinion, what do they need to do in order to get back into this series?
Well, so far, unfortunately, they seem to be kind of outclassed. As said, not finding those kills when diving in onto the likes of the Zenyatta really is to their detriment, of course, and overall their execution to that particular thing, to diving in general, calling the targets, making sure they're on the same page, needs to be slightly improved.
It does seem that both of the teams are staying with the same lineups now. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think they should have maybe changed the player for this second map?
Well, with this particular lineup, they did see a win recently, last night's leftovers on Hanamura, that is. So in theory, it should be good. They just need to hopefully now step it up and equalize the series with a 1-1. And I gotta say, it's again down to these small things, these small mistakes that seemingly still plague them.
Now, a quick prediction. Are we going to see the control map, Brunch?
I really hope so. I really do. But it's a hard one to call, because with these teams, you never know what you're going to get.
I think Fractal Esports have a good chance to close this out. The match seems to be ready. Let's go.
All right, remember, this could indeed be it. Last night's leftovers have looked fantastic throughout the contenders' trials so far. That's just finished week 2, if I'm not mistaken. And, I mean, they could be out right here. Fractal Esports have really played well on Junkertown, but as we've seen even in Overwatch League, it's one of those maps that doesn't really say everything in terms of what to expect for the rest of the series. And we could see last night's leftovers playing really well right here. We've seen them already play really well on Hanamura. We know between Ajax and Dummy, they are able to kind of help control quite well. And I imagine that might be the case here. We might be going into a map number 3.
And with these 2 kills to open up things, make that a third for last night's leftovers, that might indeed just happen, but not before Frill and Kalush take 2 members of their own. These final few staggered kills should at the very least buy them enough time to reset and regroup, and already things looking much better for this defensive side of last night's leftovers. Counter dive playing it well as well.
Oh, they're going to 2v1 Frill out as well, force him out. His recall's down. They might be able to find that kill, and Endlayer will follow up as Reach got it started for them. And this is one of the, few teams that are really good at holding out on first point on this map in particular. They know how to keep their support safe. Ajax and Dummy play well together here. And on top of that, they can keep Reach safe as well because he plays off of them, helps support them as well. Gator jumping right, and they're trying to put pressure onto the backline. Decod will fall early.
And we will see the attack visor now being pogged by Reach. Can he find the targets? He finds a pretty big one on Tense, and the kills are still favoring the defensive side. However, 1 tick was achieved in the meantime, but it's not going to be quite enough, as the rest of the team will go ahead and reset for now. And that was looking pretty scary potentially there for last night's leftovers, but just like you said, Heroes, these guys definitely know how to play around their supports and make sure they stay safe, and especially the Soldier as well here for Reach.
The big thing is watching NK versus Dummy, seeing that they have a pretty similar... Oh, Inlayer with a nice pickup. Tensa already taken down, so it's just going to be Meek to heal this whole team. And as we know with the Harmony Orb, it's just not going to be enough. NK going to be backed off. And as he is, Dummy will pull away with the Transcendence. So if he does get his Blade for this next fight, that they're going to likely want to pull out. And they have to, know at this point that Dummy has to have his ultimate himself. The Transcendence could answer the Blade. They might need to try to pop it very early on so that he'll have an opening to get it out.
and I'm curious who the target is going to be for the nano boost. Is Ajax going to wait it out and use it on top of Reach or one of those tanks? But in the meantime, LNA are actually finding one kill on the Gator. Will open things up for the rest of his team. Transcendence will be used on both sides, but kills favoring the side of Last Night's Leftovers at big time, as Reach is going to find Tensa as well. NK will go down in the end, and things are looking once again exceptional here for the defensive side. However, Transcendence answered with a Transcendence of their own, and overall the Blade will still be at the ready, so gonna look to NK to potentially finally open things up on this first point for them.
This should be their opening, but we'll have to see if they get away with it. Obviously, Reach is going to be the one to look for if he can put some pressure out. Beat already pulled out. Blade has not been followed up with, so now an opening as the Blade comes out. Can they put pressure down? They get the kill onto Reach, so he's going to be eliminated, and now the supports are under fire. NK going to be killed off by Ajax, but he's at 1 HP. No way he can get back in there now. Decod will jump right on top of him, or sorry, Gator will jump right on top of him, and it will be overtime Fractal Esports taking this first point, but a lot of time stolen away already by Last Night's Leftovers, and we've seen that time and time again, how they can, you know, take advantage of this, take away the momentum very early, and then have a good second point hold and look fantastic on a map like Hanamura.
And we'll see some swaps coming from the attacking side as well. NK now on the Soldier, and interestingly enough, Tensa now on the Mercy, so not sure whether or not his main goal right now will be to just stay safe, damage boost NK, set him up on high ground, and then regroup with the rest of his team down low on that point, or what his approach will be. On the other side though, Reach is going to be waiting with attack visor, so it's going to make things a little bit more difficult for him to really get anywhere on the point.
Oh, and Lair taken out. That's a big first pick by Meek, and he'll follow up with the Transcendence if he has to. As they put pressure down, he's going to go out and try to save Gator, but he can't get there in time. NK in the turn will be saved for now with the extra bit of healing, but Transcendence will fall, and now it's just about control of the point. Can they get back in? Their first tick already achieved. Decod melted down by the opposition. Fractal Esports trying to find an opening now as Reach has claimed a couple of kills. They took the Diva out of play. Big opening for them to find the last couple of kills, and Meek backed off now as well. Will signal Fractal Esports forced to regroup, coming back in with another opportunity.
And interestingly enough, we'll see them look to get a few staggered kills, and Decod actually sticking to the Widowmaker, so not quite sure why that is still the case. Maybe we'll eventually make the swap, just pushing them away, looking to make things a little bit more difficult when it comes to regrouping for them. As we will see Dummy now soon enough have that Transcendence. So even though NK will be good to go with the attack visor, not quite sure if he's going to find the success he's looking for. Oh, Pulse Bomb.
Oh, it goes out, but won't find anything. And now we'll see NK backed up as well. They're trying to get aggressive onto NK. They're right in his face, but he does have his tag fire, so he's going to throw it out. In-layer under fire. So is Reach, so is Ajax. They put them all behind that wall. Dummy comes out to try to save the day, and they're getting pressured. Nothing is really coming out at all from the attacking side of Fractal Esports. They're just getting shredded down by the nano visor of Reach and Ajax coming together. And they expended both of their support ults in that fight, Brunch. That does not bode well for the future, but at least they get the job done here now and lose a tick in the process.
Well, the scary thing for them was the fact that Fractal Esports actually got really close to potentially getting that third tick as well. 86.9% achieved for them. And now, as you said, not having the support ultimates is going to be scary, but Reach onto the Genji is going to look to have a little bit more success potentially going in with the rest of his team. Transcendence already popped by Meek, so maybe said opening could right as will happen as he will get close to the Blaze. 60% already. Self-destruct though popped. Can anyone get onto the point? It is a 1-for-1 trade, but in the meantime, Meek finds another one, and as Kalush will take down Fried Wiener, it will still be nobody onto the point. 94.1% achieved. Genji popped out, Reach unable to get back in, and Fractal Esports get it, but 1 minute and 23 seconds left.
Maybe a slight mishap with communication there for the Genji not to just contest for maybe a second longer to allow them to get onto the point. But either way, 1 minute and 23 seconds, as you just said, still a pretty solid time, you know, for a defense to come away with, especially after what they did on the first point. But perhaps being forced to utilize both of their support ults in the fight right before it might have been what gave it away. We've seen that from last night's leftovers a couple of times where they will occasionally just put out everything to try to stomp a fight out, but then right after that they become very vulnerable. And if they can't disengage, if they can't get away from some of the aggressive takes that we've seen from teams that just battle back into it, then it's very difficult for them to get a foothold once again, as they're on defense and they need those ults to turn the fight around. So now as they attack, though, we'll see Reach back on the Genji. We've seen a couple of moments where he's struggled against NK already, but this is a different look on a different map. However, if Fractal Esports can make the stop here, or even later, they will take this 2-0. They'll move on through the bracket, and last night's leftovers, despite their exceptional performance already in the Contenders Trials, they will fall out of the tournament.
It's a very scary thought for them right now, and interestingly enough for the defensive side, Tensa's still sticking to the Mercy, so a different choice, a different spice, if you will, when it comes to their respective composition on defense overall. The rest of it looking similar to what their opponents brought out. And what's your take on this Mercy here compared to something like an Ana?
Well, I mean, it's not the first time that we've seen it. Obviously, I mean, we have seen it a couple times, but I think the Ana is typically just more safe. The Mercy will be able to get some res off for sure, but if a well-executed dive just jumps in on that, they'll find the kill very early, and they can also just kind of be aggressive and jump on any kind of res that comes out from Tensa. But if they allow Tensa to get the Falk up, that could pose problems later on.
But already Meek and NK both finding a lot of success. We'll get 2 kills. Dummy finds 1 in return, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough, as we will see DCOD also get the D-suit. But that is all they get. Meek drops extremely low. Will manage to stay alive. Resurrect, as we said, was at the ready, so Frill is back in to the fight. And a lot is already charging up for this defensive team, whereas on offense, Ajax barely got anything in terms of healing, only at 8%. Reach, at the very least, did manage to switch strike for quite a few of the opponents, but now coming back in, he will be discorded, already forced to disengage. And this split-up team of last night's leftovers are feeling the pressure as Frill is going to find DCOD, look for more, gets a second one onto Ajax, and just like that, Fractal Esports once again will be holding out strong.
There hasn't been any pressure on the Mercy, and you could also, say a lot about Collusion, Gator's ability to just fend off, stave off that pressure, just, completely jump in, push DCOD off of them, because a couple of times we've seen Meek under fire, but really Tensa has been untouched throughout this fight, and now that Valka's up, that's what I was talking about before, where it could just really pose a lot of problems for them, because now the Mercy's a lot more slippery. They're going to have troubles gaining any kind of headway, because if they come away from a fight where they feel like they have a pick advantage, they can come in from respawn, Tensa can just bring them right back up.
And Valk popped maybe a little too early, I'd say, as so far things are just still looking good for the defensive side. We'll see last night's leftovers instantly regroup as they did hear that Valk go off, and as it will time out, maybe an opening is going to pop up for them, but considering the fact that Meek is going to be waiting with the Transcendence, Reach, not quite sure if he's going to find the success he wants to with the Blade. Pulse Bomb is going to come through, doesn't quite find a target. Self-destruct will be popped as well, and with it, they will get a kill onto Dummy, so things are looking once again really good for the defensive side. 6v5, Reach forced to disengage once again, and we will see the Primal Age being popped. NK is going to drop down, so with it, if they can force Tensa out of the fight and unable to get a Resurrect onto the said soldier, things might still look good for the offensive side, but that is not going to happen. Once again, Fractal Esports strike back.
So despite the fact that we saw last night's leftovers with a good defensive hold and how they've looked pretty solid on this map in the past, they're also just kind of struggling, and now we'll see them bring Fried Wiener back into it. He's going to be back on the Diva, and they have a couple of options for this next fight, but it's still going to be very difficult. They have to put pressure on NK now. This has to be the fight where they take this.
And we'll see the Blade come out. Can he find the target? Is this going to be the big thing? The 2 kills already secured. Might just be finally enough for last night's leftovers, as Kalu's going to lose his mech. In the meantime, Frill did manage to get the Dummy, but that's all they will have. Frill finds both supports, actually, but he's not going to be able to take down the enemy team by himself. And with those final few kills, last night's leftovers finally get the success they wanted, but still quite a lot of time here held off by the side of Fractal Esports.
Last night's leftovers have had a couple of really kind of hairy situations that they've been in. Reach almost didn't get what he wanted off the blade there. I mean, just caught trying to come up the stairwell where they allowed Meek to get away initially. Followed up with the kill later, but still one of those situations where it was very, very close, and they let go of some control early on their defense that really shouldn't have happened. But now as they look for their second point take, they need to be efficient here.
But the sick coming out of Frill, somehow still managing to find that one, makes it a 6v5, and things are looking once again good for the defensive side. Ajax will eventually go down. In the meantime, though, Gator did fall as well, so a couple of small victories potentially here for the attacking side. But as I say that, never mind, DCOD is going to go ahead and reset, look to regroup with the rest of his team as soon as possible. And at the very least, they didn't overcommit, so Ajax still get to go with the sound barrier, but this bought enough time for the defensive side to charge quite a few support ultimates of their own.
This is a scary kind of place for Fractal Esports to be in, because as Tensa, you know, he's not playing with the standard setup that most people play with. He's forced to stay on Mercy here, and while he can be, you know, pretty mobile now, it's still going to be something that can be, you know, jumped on. Valk's going to keep him alive for now. They're going forward. Inlayer already killed off. DCOD's just going to allow himself to die as well. They don't want to commit anything here. But as Tensa's Valk goes out, remember that their positioning has to be, you know, kind of different than what is the standard defensive positioning for any team on this map, because they're utilizing a Mercy in a position that, you know, typically teams don't use Mercies in. But for Tensa is not an Ana player, so they're forced to be in this, to be playing this playstyle.
And the big thing is, at the very least for them, is the fact that it's 2 minutes 44 seconds left on the clock. So considering no ticks are achieved, they will see Reach actually pop the tag visor, finding that first kill onto the Mercy. Can he find more though, as Transcendence will be popped on both sides? Reach is gonna go big with a triple kill, maybe out of fourth onto Meek, and that might just be it. But coming back from spawn is gonna be NK without a successful tag visor of his own, and as a result, 2 ticks already achieved. But the regrouping side of the defense will manage to come back. Kent Brill actually getting 1 kill in the backline onto Dummy. However, he will go down in the end. Some stalling coming in potentially with the Mei here for the defense. Meek still on it, will manage to stay alive. Pulse Bomb's not going to find the kills, but can they somehow still do this? AK gets a double kill with the Doofus. Maybe he bought it himself or the rest of his team enough time, but as I say that, that's not going to be the case. And then there will still be on point with his Tracer, but that was looking potentially scary here for last night's leftovers.
NK looked fantastic on Junkertown. Almost saved the day for them there and allowed them to have a pretty similar time. But in the end, it's going to be last night's leftover defending first. And again, we've seen how both teams have already looked fantastic on their first point holds, have really taken their opposition to the brink. You know, but now as we look for another take on last night's leftovers, again, I mean, they gave up a couple of ticks, I believe 3 in total, just by not being able to get on the objective in time. You know, 2 on point B and I think 1 on point A, if I'm not mistaken there. But they really need to make sure that they're aware of their surroundings in this particular situation, because with these kinds of time banks, it could very well come down to, you know, 1 tick on the first point, given how well both teams are at, or how good both teams are at defending this first objective. It could come down to that 33% being the, you know, major determining factor of who winds up taking this map. And if last night's leftovers allow them to steal away that first tick, and then they can't, you know, achieve it themselves, which they struggled with a 4-minute time bank on their initial push, they could be out of the tournament because of that alone.
It's gonna be potentially down to the wire for them as we will start the next round. Once again, we will see Fractal Esports on offense looking to go for the same composition, but so will the defense here for last night's leftovers, as Gator is gonna get close to the point. Frill as well, dropping pretty low. Will have that Harmony Orb to keep him alive though for now. And so far, as he said, once again, might look to potentially give up that first tick. However, not this time, as Elonair is going to be on point, picks up both supports, and with the triple kill there at the end as well into Frill, it's going to be last night's leftovers with a good defense. Only 50 seconds left on the clock here, and with the staggered kill at that for Kaluj as well, it's going to buy that much more time for last night's leftovers to make sure they do get the full hold potentially here.
This will likely be the last fight, and coming away from it, Reach is at about 60%. We'll be able to get more before they're actually on top of them. Last night's leftovers do have that slight advantage right now because of winning that first fight, getting that extra little bit of ult charge, but they need to make sure that DCOD stays safe here.
God is going to be able to get out in the nick of time, stay alive as a result. And overall now Reach is going to get close, as you said, to that attack visor. But Elenator is good to go with the pulse bomb. And in the meantime, Fried Wiener will be able to take down both supports. And with that extra staying power, without that healing, it's going to be Last Night's Leftovers once again coming out big. Attack visor even popped by Reach. 1 second left. Nobody inside to get onto the point. And as a result, it will be an excellent defense once more by Last Night's Leftovers. At the very least, for now, for them, we will go to the third map, but preferably for them, they will look to get one tick on this point themselves.
Fractal Esports went into that last push with a plan. Send everybody forward, send the dive forward, push out as much as you can, just play slow, try to find an opening. They tried to find one onto Decod, but he slipped away. They left their supports behind so that they didn't full engage on that fight until they had the full opening. And allow your supports to just kind of poke and prod, try to get their ults up. If they can, if you can stall out that long, you might have an opportunity to make use of that later. But because they left their supports behind, Last Night's Leftovers noticed that, got aggressive, jumped on those supports, found the kills, and won the fight because of it. So very good way to adapt from Last Night's Leftovers. On their defensive side, they hold out. 1 minute 23 was the time bank we saw Fractal Esports start with. Now 2 minutes for Last Night's Leftovers. They only need that 33%. They held out well, but they struggled on their attacking phase on the first point at least. But now, again, we will see Tensa not going for the maybe standard Ana pick. He's going to be on the Lucio instead. This is going to be a little bit more slippery than the Mercy we saw them already struggle against. But still, what do you make of this? Tensa on the Lucio now instead of the Mercy. Again, can't really play the Ana, so they're forced to play one of these two.
It's a tough one because while, yes, it could help the rest of his team to dive in and get the opposing side's backline, your backline is not going to be as safe in NK and Meek, so might still prove to make things really difficult for them. But as you said, they did have a good defensive hold as well, and just like I said, Frill will manage to find the first kill, first blood of this team fight. Even Meek getting another one to Reach, and already so many seconds lost here for Last Night's Leftovers. And if we'll see any other extra staggered kills, it's going to make things that much more difficult. However, we'll see Decod able to regroup for now, but it's going to be a tough one either way. But with 1 minute 20 seconds, things could still happen here for Last Night's Leftovers. They just need to wait it out and make sure they go in at the right time.
Both of these Zenyatta's just tossing right clicks at each other, trying to get that first pick. You want that advantage in these fights. Everything comes down to this for Last Night's Leftovers. They don't want this to go to a draw. They want to take this win so that they can go into this next map, take that as well, try to get themselves further into the tournament. But Dummy right now coming away. They'll have the Transcendence available very soon, but Meek will have one as well. Inke very close to having attack visor, and it's going to be very hard to close the distance, the gap between Inke and the attacking side of Last Night's Leftovers if they want to put pressure on this soldier.
Frill does have the pulse bomb though, and it will force the Transcendence. Not going to save Ajax, and that could be the big one, as so far with the 6v5, things are looking stellar for the defensive side, but the blade is at a ready. Attack visor going to be popped by Anke. He's going to look for the targets, and he finds him. Dummy as well as the DC is going to clean things up, and with 17 seconds left, there's going to be a mad dash potentially by Last Night's Leftovers, but it's going to be extremely difficult for them to make it on time on the point.
This might have worked out for them. If they can get someone on the objective, they're going to be very aggressive and they're going to be very strung out. And it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Ajax not going to be able to get the...
Nope.
Oh, he's not going to be able to get the ultimate out as well. And Reach not going to be able to make it. Had the blade, just wasn't able to get there in time. They just didn't have the extra bit of time bank to make sure that they were able to get back onto the objective. And that's a tie between these two teams. It's a 1-0-1 going into the third map.
So we will go to a control map, and it will be Nepal, but the big problem, once again, for Last Night's Leftovers, they need to win the next map, and then another one, which would be Lijiang. So in the meantime, we'll go over to a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere.
back at the analysis desk once again. I do feel like last night's leftovers should have won this. They looked for the majority of the game way better, I'd say. I especially liked Reach and Enler combination. As Soldier and Tracer, they were delivering big time for their team. But at the end, I feel like last night's leftover, they basically adjusted well. They took Lucio at the end instead of Mercy on Tensa, and they managed to defend.
Well, I do disagree with the fact that they had an overall much better time. I think, while yes, they had a better performance, it was a marginal one, if you will. And the problem for them right now is the fact that if they wish to still win and proceed for the losers bracket, they need to not only win the next map on Nepal, but they also need to win Lijiang after. So things are really tricky for them. On the other side, of course, if you're Fractal Esports, you have a little more leeway. You can definitely still come out on top. And things are looking really scary if you're last night's leftovers.
The pressure is definitely still on the last night's leftover side. Now, coming into Nepal, what compositions are we expecting to see?
We've seen a lot of triple tank with the likes of Junkrat when it comes to Sanctum. That can most definitely be the case. And a lot of Orisa to open things up. And generally speaking, we've seen the team to lose out that first team fights and will start making swaps. And we've seen other differences and variations when it comes to the other sides, the other maps. Maybe a Fair and a Mercy. I would expect that potentially with Tensa preferring that particular hero time again. And it's going to be down to which is going to be the maps at hand to start things off.
The match is ready. Let's see if we are going to see Lijiang. Hurix, take it away.
Starting things off, looks like a dive for last night's leftovers. And Fractal Esports instead going for the old Orisa Roadhog Junkrat. Frill will be on the Soldier 76, and no Soldier actually for last night's leftovers. Ooh, Reach almost falls off the map there, and nobody ripped off by Gator just yet. We've seen Shiny fall off a couple times, and New Face Guy as well, but nothing yet for Fractal Esports.
Oh, actually getting Meek out of the picture already. Decod managing to find that one kill, but not before he goes down as well. Reach in the meantime gets one onto Gator. Ajax finds the boop onto NK, and already they step it up. Last night's leftovers open up big here on Nepal, and I was about to comment on how they really need to do so, especially with Elenair and Reach getting another few extra kills, staggering the opposition on top of that. And Reach, look at that, already at 82% towards his blade. And the layer, of course, already having the pulse bomb previously.
So Fractal Esports swapping themselves over to a dive. NK versus Reach will happen one more time. And Reach at about 90% towards his blade. They do have the advantage given the fact that they did just swap.
And now going back towards the point, Kalu is going to be the only one with the rest of his team, so they might just get the point back, but no, we'll finally see them contest. The blade is going to come out looking for those tanks right now. Finally dashing in, gets two, and with it, this should be enough for last night's leftovers to once again hold out strong and building up 43% on the point. And the big problem for the opposition is the fact that they will soon enough have both support ultimates still available, which could stall things further.
Going forward, Reach trying to be a little bit aggressive so he can get some of his blade back. As NK comes away with 65%, they're going to dive back in. 60% already on the board for last night's leftovers. Transcendence available for Dummy. Ajax will have a sound barrier soon as well. I mean, this looks like it's going to be very difficult for Fractal Esports to steal this first round away on Nepal.
And that said, with so many ultimates, it'll be the sound barrier first spot here defensively by the team of last night's leftovers. Now Transcendence from both sides, but the boop is actually, or rather the self-destruct is going to find one kill on Fried Wiener. And overall, with the 6v5 man advantage, things are looking good for the red-hand side. But Reach in the meantime will have other plans in mind, getting a double kill, but so will NK with a blade. However, is it going to be enough, as we will still see Decod on that point? We'll look to get a couple more kills, gets Kalush in the end, bought the rest of his team enough time to regroup, with Fried Wiener getting back. Overtime will kick in, and finally we will see Fractal Esports get a hold of the point.
But they don't really have anything other than the sound barrier. I mean, Tensa will be at about 90% going into this next fight, but Reach has about 95%. So going into it, I mean, if Reach just dives right on top of Tensa because they know that he hasn't pulled that ultimate out, they could find the kill before he's able to pull it out and completely nullify the cast if they're quick enough.
That's going to be the big target here for them if they can call it out. If they can get that particular kill, could very well be enough here to get the point and the first round win. They only need one more team fight to get it, and it will be the Soundburst still secured by the side of Tensa. NK finding the kill onto Decod will once again mean that the rest of the side of last night's leftovers will just go ahead, regroup for now, give up on that team fight, and look to come stronger with the next one. But what this allows Fractal Esports is to build a lot more ultimates of their own.
They just make sure that they are able to pull that ultimate out, see if they can get anything charged up themselves. One thing will be the blade, as NK might be able to turn one around himself if they're not quick, and Dummy might be taken out by Frill, and he is. Frill takes down their main support as they go aggressive anyways. The blade comes through. It's in layer and reach forward, creating the space for the rest of their team. They'll find the kills. They might find the point flip along with it.
It's going to be these final few kills. Frill, though, still looking to contest. It's going to make things potentially a little bit more difficult. Does have the pulse bomb. Can he get in time? No is the answer, and overtime will kick in. However, he will fall, and as said, this should be eventually it going the way of last night's leftovers. And the layer will be able to find 2 kills. The blade is at the ready though. NK coming back in. Can he find the turnaround as he gets a first call onto Ajax, looking for more? Will be both supports actually for LNL going down, but nobody on this point means that it will still be last night's leftovers winning it out, and that's gotta feel bad for Fractal Esports.
I mean, they were trying to get back into it, but they just fell so far behind after that first point. And, you know, there's a lot of discussion around, you know, momentum in control point maps, just seeing how the map immediately favors the team that wins the first fight. That's been an ongoing, you know, topic of discussion throughout Overwatch's competitive history for as long as I can remember. And I mean, that kind of thing does continue here. It's displayed right in front of our very eyes as, you know, first fight goes over to last night's leftovers, and they make sure that they secure 99% before they even give the fight away, because they can just stall so well with Dummy and Ajax being on those particular support heroes.
But it's not over just yet. Of course, even if they do win Nepal with this next round or one of the upcoming rounds, it still means that they have to take Lijiang on top as well. So far now, looking back, flash onto the point. Both teams looking to get a hold of it. So far, though, it will be Fractal Esports having the better time with it. Kaluj will be dropping pretty low, as so will Gator, but having the bubble is going to keep him safe for quite a while. And in the meantime, Meek will find the kill onto Elenair, and with the 6v5, things might be looking dire here for last night's leftovers. Fractal Esports finally having a better time when it comes to that first team fight, as you said. Definitely the big factor here for most of the control maps. And now, with Dummy also going down, will be the rest of this team regrouping, and they will eventually be falling. But in the meantime, Elenair still finds 1 kill onto Kaluj, so small victories as well as Reach getting that attack virus is going to make things potentially difficult. But on the other side, both supports will soon have their ultimates at the ready.
They need to engage quickly before Kaluj gets into position, but as he boosts up, they're going to be able to put the sound barrier up. They're going to get everybody with it, and that's going to be a very difficult fight for them to win. But they do stack their support ultimate, so now Fractal Esports has to be very lethal so that they can win this fight outright, and they will be kind of susceptible. They will be vulnerable in the next one as they don't have those options, but luckily for them, they still have the blade, they still have the pulse bomb, they still have the self-destruct, so you know, they will have a couple of options to just stave off last night's leftovers in this next fight, because they don't have any support ults of their own right now. And if they're able to get some kills secured, you know, rather quickly and allow Meek and Tensa to get some of that damage in that fight, they might be able to equalize just a little bit in terms of the economy.
We'll see whether or not that's going to happen, as Primal Age was spotted by Gator, but in the meantime, Reach finding the counter fill is going to be pretty big. Tensa actually gets the boop. Not quite sure how that happened, as I was looking at the point, and so far with the members being equalized in terms of the numbers on both sides, Dummy might be forced to pop that Transcendence, and Elenair in the meantime finds 1 kill onto Tensa, so things finally starting to look better for last night's leftovers as they might get a hold of this point. Frill in the meantime though, he has 1 kill onto Dummy, does go ahead and use the Pulse Bomb, but it will once more be all favoring this blue hand side of last night's leftovers, as they will eventually get the point in their favor, but 88% already achieved here for Fractal Esports.
So a similar situation that they had just put Fractal Esports in. Now they're in it themselves. Decod, he primal raged. He went to jump and tried to take the kill on Dummy, or sorry, onto Meek. But then Tensa booped him mid-air, so he wasn't able to get that re-jump, and then just fell off the fell off the map. So that's what happened there. But Reach now holding on to the tac visor. Oh, Inke saved for now, and now with the beat as well, they're going to go forward with that. They'll find 2 very quick kills for themselves. Now looking to try to find the Tracer kill as well. They find that with ease, and Fractal Esports dominating right now on Shrine. I mean, going forward, they should be able to find a late kill as well onto the Diva. They do just that, 95%. I'm not even sure if anybody's going to be able to make it back to the point. Looks like perhaps Decod will, but surely will get ripped down when he makes it, but
nope,
not even the case.
So as a result, it's going to be a 1-for-1. Things looking dire once more for Last Night's Leftovers as they desperately need this next round win. And considering that fact that it's going to be Village, what's your take on this one here? Do you think we're actually going to see more Pharah finally with the likes of a Mercy as well, or is it going to just be the dive once again?
I think if there's a team that runs it, I think, you know, we would probably see it first from Fractal Esports, because we know how often Tensa will tend to play Mercy if there's an availability for it. But because of the matchup that they have with Inke versus Reach, and how Inke has looked very solid in that matchup with the Genjis pitted up against each other, I think that we're going to be seeing a lot of Genji play to start things off. And that's exactly going to be the case, because they just feel comfortable with that Genji versus Genji matchup right now in this particular series.
We'll see who can get an advantage to start things off here on this third round. So far, it's going to be the D-suit happening already. Things looking back and forth as both of these teams claiming kills, but in the end, it's going to be Last Night's Leftovers coming out on top ever so slightly. Reach still alive for now, but the question is for how long, as Kalush is going to lose his mech. And the first point cap will indeed go over to Last Night's Leftovers. And look at that, Reach this time around winning out in that Genji fight with 88% towards his Dragon Blade.
And another note to make as well against the Mercy pick is that, you know, we haven't seen Lucio or Mercy from Meek, so I don't know if that they would want to pull this out, because typically with the Mercy you play the Lucio along with it on a control map. But now they're going to get aggressive again. Reach right in the back line, and the point will flip, and they'll find the kill on Reach as well. This might be an opening for Fractal, but they have to deal with Decod, they have to deal with Enlair. He's been a pest so far for them, and Frill will get taken down, ripped apart. Enlair will be able to be there to flip the point, but at least something gained for Fractal Esports.
And they also just deny the side of Last Night's Leftovers in terms of building up more with that percentage and making sure they have a lot more chances when it comes to coming back onto this point and fighting back. The Pulse Bomb is actually going to go ahead and find its mark, find its target onto Tensa, and just like that, we might just see a lot more time being bought here for Last Night's Leftovers, and we've seen how important that can really be for both sides, as we'll at the very least have the Blade at the ready now finally for NK, but Reach still holding on to his. Could potentially find those big targets, as no support ultimates are available for Fractal Esports, but so far it's going to be 1 kill onto Meek. Nobody else going down for now. Primal Rage will be popped by Decod, as well as Gator looking for something. Sound Barrier though, finally coming out of Tensa. It's going to make things a little bit more difficult, but Decod still finding the kill onto Frill. Transcendence will be popped by Dummy. Self-destruct on the point too. Will grant the resuit here for Fried Wiener, as he did have the kill, or rather the D-suit onto Kalush. And with this teamfight win, it's going to be potentially one more teamfight here for the other side of Fractal Esports. It's going to be pushed back, but Frill actually finding a kill onto Decod could be very big here.
This should be a winnable fight now. They take the Winston out of play. They have some great ultimates to work with. They have the Blade, they have Transcendence, they have Pulse Bomb as well. Ideally, they only have to use 2 to get this fight won in their favor. But kills are already coming out, and Enlair is popping off. Inke really has to come through, and he hasn't found anything just yet with the Blade, and it falls out. He's looking for Dummy, but they're going to look to answer him. He has not been able to find anything.
And the layer just popping off on that Tracer, shut down this push once again. And the big problem here is the fact that nobody's able to get onto the point. Desperate attempt, overtime still kicking in. Not allowed to get on top Meek, even with the Transcendence is not able to do just so. And LNL now equalizing the series 1-1, and we're going to Lijiang.
1-1-1. Can it get any closer than that? 2-1 on this map. Going to Lijiang, it doesn't seem like any team really has the upper hand, and Both teams fighting to stay alive in this tournament. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll have that next map coming your way after this short commercial break.